Tony Tokunbo Fernandez show is all about promoting the true life and success stories of African and Caribbean achievers around the world. If there's a product or initiative you wish to share, feel free to give us a call. The number is 0788 280 9005. A very warm welcome to all our listeners around the world. You're welcome to the Tony Tokunbo Fernandez show, a show that promotes the true life and success stories of African and Caribbean achievers around the world. So if there's a product or initiative you wish to share, feel free to give us a call. The number is 0788 280 9005. That number once again is 0788 280 9005. And we have some amazing guests lined up on the Tony Tokunbo Fernandez show this year. If you're thinking of booking me for your event, whether it's an MC event or a Zoom initiative, feel free to give us a call on the same number. And we have some amazing guests lined up this year and beyond. And today we're moving all the way to Finland, here in Europe, to speak to Mr. Elvis Fuamba. Now, I met Mr. Elvis Fuamba many years ago at an international blogging conference in Berlin, Germany. And I met up with him again last year in Helsinki, Finland, on a day out where we had a business meeting, whilst I was also spending 4 days in Estonia. And he's also now just produced an amazing documentary, produced and directed by him. And we're going to be featuring it just after the show. So we hope you enjoy this one. Share your thoughts, give us your feedback, and let's continue to promote the narratives of African and Caribbean achievers doing amazing work around the world. Now, Elvis Fuamba is based in Finland, and he is the founder of Afro-Finnish. So, Mr. Elvis, great to see you again after last year in Helsinki. It was a very memorable day that day, and it was so fascinating to see how things work in Finland. So, you're welcome to the Tony Tokunbo Fernandez show again. Can you just tell the listeners just briefly a bit about yourself, your background, and what Afro-Finnish is all about?
Thank you, Tony, for having me on your show today. My name is Elvis Fuamba, like you said already, and I'm the chairman of Afro-Fin, also the founder. And Afro-Fin is an association that promotes diversity and inclusion in all aspects of our community. So we do this by using events, and we use events as tool for community building. So basically, Afro-Fin organize a lot of events in different fields. This year, we are focusing mostly on cultural events and then business-related events. And we use this event, like I said, to promote different aspects that we think need promotion.
Now,
and I've been, yep.
Go on.
Yes, I've been working on with Afro-Fin for almost 10 years now. And it's been a slow process. Afro-Fin is just picking up right now. But we are really seeing a lot of changes in this community. People are striving for better goals and higher goals. So this is a positive result from Afro-Fin.
Talking about looking for striving for better goals in Finland, how would you briefly describe the everyday life of African migrants living in Finland? And how would you describe it to the rest of Europe?
Well, the everyday life of an African person that would live in Finland is basically the same like you would have back in UK. But of course, there are location-specific challenges that people are facing here in Finland. And I feel personally that with the amount of awareness that have been brought up with the creation of a lot of associations, a lot of groups that are now sharing or spreading out information, I think there's more resilience into the community. People are really looking forward to try for better lifestyle, for better financial freedom, financial independence. So yes, I will be positive when I think about a lifestyle of an African here in Finland. Compared to the rest of Europe, I think also this is directly linked to the country we live in. Finland is pretty wealthy place, and almost four times in the world now the happiest country on earth. So it reflects also on its communities, and all of them, like the African community living in Finland has maybe better situation than one that would live in Greece, or I don't want to mention country's name, but still, yeah.
Now we're just about to watch your documentary, Cultural Crossroads, on the Tokunbo Fernandez show for the very first time. So it's going to be viewed by all our listeners. I watched it last night, and I want to keep our audience in suspense. Well, I found it an amazing masterpiece. You are the producer and the director and the brainchild. Finally, what inspired this?
Well, the documentary, I think, is directly inspired from by my own life in Finland. There's a lot of questions when you live in an environment that is not yours originally, and you have to fit and you have to create your own space. So there's a lot of doubts, a lot of mistakes, and a lot of things that you wish you knew how to do, or you wish you didn't do, or you wish you've done. So there's so many aspects of it. But for this documentary especially, I think it's like looking into my community and trying to understand why and what can make us live a better life. I think that's also that brought me to trying to understand about our identity, who we are, because if you know who you are, you also know where you're going. And identity is mostly created by our culture, by the stories we heard, where we lived, and who we interacted with. So with that, I thought that it would be a good idea to try to understand the culture of the community in general. That will also help me to understand how this community is building itself and what direction we are going, since culture define a lot of who we are, what we do. So yes, I went by researching, and I talked to scholars, I talked to artists, and I came up with a little bit of conversation that lasts 1 hour, 20 minutes. So yeah, that makes this documentary. So basically we talked about cultural transmission, the way to transmit culture, what is culture, and then what are the transmission agents who is included in transmitting a culture. We kind of brush into those topics, and also check some nature of culture itself, like culture is selective, culture can be bidirectional. Does mean like you can learn from your kids and your kids can learn from you. So all those kind of aspects, I was trying to understand how does they translate when it comes to the Afro-Finnish community.
So we're not going to leave our audience waiting. We're here to watch for the very first time on the Tokunbo Fernandez show, Cultural Crossroads by Elvis Fuamba. After this short break, sit back and relax, and keep up the amazing work you're doing, and I'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Nice job. Yep.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ndidi Nkwapara, creative producer at Soaring with Didi. I'm thrilled to announce that Soaring with Didi will be producing the first Leeds International African Festival as part of the Leeds 2023 Year of Culture. 2023 will be a year of culture like no other. In collaboration with our major partners, we're excited to bring together the African communities in Leeds to shout about their heritage and let their culture loose. Through African arts exhibitions, cooking competitions, music, and dance performances within the week of 8th to the 15th of July 2020. If you're an African living in Leeds, be a part of this. If you're an artist and you want to collaborate, go to www.leeds2023.co.uk and www.soaringwithdidi.com. Be a part of it.
The best way of understanding other people's culture is by participating.
Because I can see both sides. I can see two tales of myself.
think culture is a combination of many things.
It tells like where you come from.
I'm thinking it's kind of everything.
It's complex.
It's also about what comes from the diaspora, what comes from Britain, for example, Caribbean communities and their histories in Britain, what comes from the US, and like Black Lives Matter is definitely part of African cultures here in Finland as well.
How culture shaped me?
That's a very good question. I just could not have a full grasp of what culture meant in the West.
I can't be something else than a colonized person because the history deleted my direct connection to my ancestry.
I've seen the growth of Finland as a whole, from not seeing biracial children to seeing biracial children everywhere.
Culture is like a box, but that box doesn't close, it keeps changing like an amoeba.
One way we differ from other animals is that we can pass on our culture, our knowledge, our skills, not just in face-to-face interactions, but across generations to strangers we've never met, even those living long after we have died. We humans can pass on what we learn over great distances and across time. We can do this because we have symbols, ways of recording and transmitting our thoughts and discoveries, in writing, pictures, photographs, videos, and so on, but also others can learn from the objects we design and which survive us. Without these sorts of cultural transmissions, each generation would have to reinvent itself more or less from scratch.
What is culture? Culture is all the things that shape me as I am beyond the flesh, like what makes me, Leonardo, what makes me exist as a person.
And that connotes a lot of other things, for instance, their beliefs, that brings in religion, and also it comes also to do with the, moral issue, the moral values.
It does and it doesn't. I think the idea, one of the things we have to understand about culture is that what we know today as culture is what the definition, if you ask anybody to define culture, what we see or how culture is defined in most texts, it is still very Western. For example, I grew up in Cameroon. I lived in a rural area. And if you ask my parents to talk about culture, they'll tell you about their traditional dance, they'll tell you about their regalia, they'll tell you about these traditional things. Culture to them is tradition. It's what is it that is based, what did they learn from their ancestors? That's the culture, that's what they're trying to preserve. It is we try to preserve our culture by encouraging people to marry within our tribe. It's because we want to keep the language, keep the way of doing things. And that's how I grew up understanding what culture is.
It's things that I hear about, but somehow shape me. So for example, there are stories that I heard from my parents and my grandparents that told me where I came from in a certain context that I never experienced. But when I go somewhere and I become somebody, I become an adult, for example, those stories continue shaping me.
The way your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister intertwined and help give you memories, I would say, because this is what we embody is memories day in and day out.
Culture is also what I experience myself. So for a long time, I thought that because I grew up in in a mix between sort of the Black history, the Black local histories with the white local histories together, I never thought of myself as somebody who is fully Black, or of course impossibly, but like white as well. I've always seen myself as what is me?
I'm like a mix of many cultures, and there's so many cultures that interfere in our lives. So I think it's something you should always remember in life, because it's what makes you like yourself.
Culture it's coming from how you grew. It's the way that your parents instilled their morals. They showed you, okay, this is the right from wrong. These are the cultural norms. This is what culture is to me, where I can go into a room and say, hey, my family members and the way I grew up was like this.
It's like habits, it's food, it's language, it's so many things. And also I think that culture is something that there are different kinds of cultures. There is this wider societal culture, the countries that we are living in, or sub-regions inside the countries. But then there is also family cultures, and they might differ within the same country, within the same societal culture. There might be many different kind of family cultures, and that's also something that we all have.
So, for example, I'm Brazilian, so that's part of me. There is that whole idea of, a Brazilian culture, national identity. That's part of me. That's part of my culture. I'm also Black Brazilian, which gives me a certain aspect of being me that white Brazilians don't have. I'm a child of working class Black Brazilians, which creates a set of cultures that make me so different from people who don't have that specific setting as part of the culture. So in a way, that entrance in something that was considered to be for a long time white culture made me a different person, because I add that layer, that cultural layer on myself. In addition to that, I have the Finnish culture in me. I've been in Finland for 14 years, and I can already tell, for example, when I go back to Brazil, that I'm different with them.
My culture is influenced by the fact that I've lived in Finland for 12 years. I am not, for example, when I go back to Cameroon, I do not identify as Cameroonian anymore, because when I look at, I try to be on time. When I see a place that's dirty, I stare. I forget to greet people, to shake hands. So these are little things that makes me understand that, hey, I am not the same. I'm not that same person. But then I am not a Finnish person either. So I am a hybrid of what I used to be and what I've become. And I am influenced by the Finnish culture a lot. That's why sometimes I tell people that although I'm Black, I'm white, because I have elements of whiteness in me.
And I always say my culture is kind of a complex phenomenon, simply because I'm an African, East African, Tanzanian, who immigrated in Finland for about 20 years. Therefore, there's so much that's left behind, and there's so much also things that I've adapted from the new culture that I'm immigrated in. So I'm this kind of person who's between. So when I go back home, I don't fit that well. And when I stay here, still I don't fit well.
It is a combination of all those things, and that makes it different from African diaspora cultures in Germany, for example, or in the US or in India, in Iran. We have African diasporas around the world, African diaspora communities around the world. Some of them are old, some of them are relatively new, like the one in Finland. They are somehow interconnected, in a way products of what some scholars have called the flows. They are products of cultural flows, but also products of political flows, ideological flows. So it's not only what comes from Africa, it's also what comes from other parts of the diaspora and how people bring those things together.
Culture. That is a very interesting question. I think culture is a combination of many things, including things that you are taught from home. So I think every home, despite where they are in the world, every home has its own culture, a way of being, sort of a set of norms, which is something you learn from home and the environment you grow up in. But I think culture is also something you grow into. So it's also a set of, maybe not necessarily norms, but a sort of history, a canon that you find yourself in, that you begin to understand how your past has effect on your future. And I think culture has a big impact on realizing who you are in relation to your history. I think it's a combination of many things, that I think that I represent many cultures and I am represented by many cultures. My mother told me when I was young, when I was speaking about where I'm from, saying that I am half Finn or half Ghanaian, whichever way it was, she told me that no, there is no such thing as half people. There's no such thing as half identities, that you're fully Ghanaian and you're fully Finn and you're fully Swedish. You're fully everything you are. And I think that's something that I've carried along with me also with other cultures that I represent. For example, I'm a hip-hop dancer, so I represent a hip-hop culture and also carry the responsibility of learning the history of that culture in the same way that I carry the responsibility of learning the history of Finnish culture or Ghanaian culture. So I feel my culture is a combination of all the cultures that exist in me and all the cultures that I take part in.
So I think that when you think of transmission,
families with two different cultures or many different cultures.
But you think of transmission as a process that is somehow only part of a broader process of construction of self.
When it comes to passing on traditions and passing on culture,
it is a very important process.
What they really appreciate in their own culture and what they want to share.
Hallelujah, karibuni jamani. Jisikie nyumbani. Jisikie furaha. Malaika